Everyone has some sort of a closet that's become too small. A closet is no place to live, and I want to support as many people as I can in stepping out of that prison into the fullness of life that's waiting for them on the other side of that closet door. I'm Nancy Shadlock from Centered Life Coaching. Join me in listening to these Coming Out Chronicles. Get curious about your story, and then see what good things are waiting for you on the other side of your closet door.
Darla LeDoux, it's such a treat to have you on here with me today. You have been
Nance. Good to see you.
You've been such an inspiring person in my life, and so I'm delighted to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we'll first just tell us a little bit of who you are in the world and what you're up to.
I sure will. My name's Darla LeDoux. I am the founder of a company called Sourced, where we're dedicated to working with entrepreneurs to lead their business in alignment with their sourced guidance, or to really make their inner knowing be valid, valued, and visible in the way they lead. And I know we'll talk more about that. I'm also an author, as we just talked about. I'm just finishing up my second book. My first book's called Retreat and Grow Rich, and this new book is called The Sourced Experience, and it'll be coming out hopefully at Thanksgiving. That's the intent.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to try and do a little 2-for-1 here today, because I know I have insider knowledge that you have a really fun coming out story around your sexuality. And then I thought we could go into, what you're doing with your new brand with Sourced and your coming out story around that.
Yeah, so I do have a true coming out story in the truest sense, which is coming out about my sexuality. And what's interesting, Nancy, is it didn't really feel like coming out because I didn't know I was in. So I really, I was 39 and I had been in business, about 4 years, I would say. My business was doing great. I'm working as a coach. I'm helping people align with their truth and their business. And I kind of got the nudge to make some changes in my life. I moved, so I didn't know anybody. And I was in a whole new environment. And things were just going like swimmingly in so many areas. But I wasn't able to make the area of relationship work. So I was on Match.com and I was dating men and I was, going out on these dates, and I was really not engaged in the process, pretty much at a point of despair, thinking something is up here, because I knew at that point I had done enough of my own transformational work that I knew if I wanted something, I would create it. And so here I was saying I wanted a relationship, but not creating it. And I had even worked with a relationship coach who, at the end of our time, we worked together for 6 months. She said, I don't think you really want a relationship. When I moved to Denver, I worked with a feng shui specialist to help design my house. And in particular, she has this thing about making your closet available for a partner. And her conclusion was also, she didn't tell me this, but she also concluded that I did not want a man moving into my closet. So anyway, fast forward, I'm just kind of going through life, scratching my head, wondering why this isn't working. And all of a sudden, things started breaking in my life, like really, really obvious things. Like I would have jewelry break, 3 pieces of jewelry, like I caught my necklace on a corner and one of my earrings just fell one day, just apart. A light bulb exploded. I lost a tooth. My tooth cracked. And then I ran my car into a light pole outside of my driveway, like the same driveway that I always pulled out of. And so I started to realize something was up. So gratefully, I know you and I both host retreats. It's something that we both love. And so gratefully, I had a retreat that I was heading to, and I was a coach on the team for one of my mentors. And we're at this retreat, and I'm in this place of knowing a transformation is coming. When you've done this enough, you kind of get that sense like, this isn't happening for no reason. I'm supposed to pay attention to this. There's something I need to know. So I kind of show up at this retreat, and I'm bringing all of my my life is falling apart, literally, to this retreat, and I was a coach, so I kept it together, but secretly I set my intention that I was going to get a breakthrough around this. And so I had told my mentor that these things were happening. And he said, and I was like, what does it mean when things are breaking? And he said, it has to do with suppressed anger. And I was like, well, what am I angry about? I'm not angry. But that was kind of early in the retreat. So I'm sitting there thinking about, what am I angry about? So fast forward the end of the retreat, and we were just having a conversation. We were actually talking about retreats, and I was sharing how I wanted to do this retreat in Vietnam. I'd been to Vietnam, and it was really a pivotal experience for me. And he asked, what is it about Vietnam? Something about that got his attention. And I said, it was just so peaceful there. Everybody was so friendly and non-judgmental. That was my experience in Vietnam. Now, whether that's true or not, that was the experience I had when I was there.
That's your truth.
Exactly. And he said, what are you afraid people will judge you for? And I was like, again, I don't know. And it was at that point, and we were at a team dinner, a big long table of people, and I was kind of across from him diagonally, but nobody was listening. And he looked at me and he said, ever since I've known you, there's been something. And he waved his hands in front of me the way I interpreted that was a barrier or a shield, right? We talk a lot about the energetic barriers we have. He said, there's been something. And he said, you kind of have the energy of someone who's gay and doesn't know it. And I'm pretty sure I wrinkled my nose or, cocked my head like our dog does when he hears a noise, like, huh? And he said, I'm not saying it's that, but it's something like that. So just sit with it. And in my mind, I'm trying to think of anything else it could be but that. And did you have that experience of trying to talk yourself out of being gay?
Mm-hmm, for sure. Pray myself out of being gay.
Yeah. So my mind was racing, trying to figure out anything else it could be, because it can't be that. And gratefully, again, I went from there to this event. And I'm at the event, and I'm just, I'm totally distracted by this bomb that it felt like was just dropped in my world. But I overheard 3 conversations about people either being in the closet, coming out of the closet, or not knowing they were in the closet in, succession. And I was sitting there, like, I'm sure turning red in the face thinking, oh my God, this is for me. So I flew home from the event and I said a prayer on the plane, and I said, if this is a message for me, universe, I promise I will listen, but please make it abundantly clear. So I get home, I'm unpacking my suitcase, I flipped on Grey's Anatomy, and the episode was about a woman who was on her deathbed and she had never come out to her son. And I literally looked up at the ceiling and I was like, seriously? And so I decided that was obviously abundantly clear. And within the week, I flew to Los Angeles because I didn't really know what to do, but I had a friend in LA who was a lesbian. So I called her and asked her to help me. And she took me out in West Hollywood so I could give myself an experience and find out if this was really true once and for all. So, and I did it kind of quickly because I understand transformation. And it's like, when we get that insight, if we don't take some sort of action to test it out and find out the truth and find out that we won't die, we'll probably revert back. Mm-hmm. And so, and actually, once I embraced it, I could look back and see a moment in my past where I had done that, actually. So I knew I needed to go find out. And, as the song goes, I kissed a girl and liked it, and that the rest is history. But I thought, Nancy, that I would die to come out. So, obviously this is Coming Out Chronicles. I knew I had built a business at that point on my authenticity, on my vulnerability, on sharing my own journeys with transformational work. So I knew I needed to share it. But I was really, really scared because my work was built on truth. And here I was, like, not in my truth.
Yeah.
And I really didn't know. But then once I knew, I was like, well, immediately wanted to make myself wrong. Like, how did you not know that? What, how could you teach this stuff? Obviously, you're not qualified. You just need to quit and get a job. And thankfully, I had mentorship, so I could run these thoughts by someone who said, you know what, you came out to me in 5 minutes, so I think you're going to be okay. Just do it. So I started, writing to my list. I sent it to my friend first to approve my email. I don't know why, because she doesn't even do what I do or understand it. But she said, I don't think you should send that. What if you're wrong? She was all in the camp of doubt. But that whole experience really helped me in my business, because I realized people will have an opinion about everything. This was my best friend saying, hey, I think you might be wrong. Like, you shouldn't say that. Wanting me to stay the same, not wanting me to change, wanting to censor me. And I realized, when I saw that people had opinions about my sexuality, like if I was right or wrong about my sexuality, it was like, gosh, what else do people have opinions about? That's really none of their business. And that's really fueled my work since then, once I got over the terror.
Yeah, I totally hear you. It feels like you might die. Like I had a similar experience where I had a practice where I listened to people at a soul level and helped them hear from the divine. And it was mostly in a Christian church context. And so I was like, if I come out about this, I'm going to be totally disqualified from my whole practice, and no one's ever going to take me seriously again.
Exactly.
I actually have studied a lot of your list of what the steps of transformation are. And in episode 10, I gave a kind of conglomerate of what you've taught me and some of what Richard Rudd talks about from the Gene Keys. And in there, I was saying how if we don't get the knock of transformation and welcome it in, it'll come around the back door. And I love how it was like back door, side door, basement door, like all the doors for you until it finally came through and
let's
you
just
received
blow
it.
some things up.
And now you've learned, like, transformation comes a lot faster to you, does it not?
Yeah, I would say I've learned to listen. I've also learned to not make it wrong or shameful if I miss a signal, right? Because if something is not an integrated part of our truth, sometimes we just can't see it. And that is part of being human. And, I know as transformational leaders, we think that we should somehow be beyond that. But, there's always learning and growth, and depending on what your soul signed up for in this lifetime, like that might be the way you learn. So yes, I think that I see things earlier now, and the lessons tend to be less painful, but my goal is not to make them less painful necessarily, if that makes sense.
Like feel all the feelings. But
well, and also, if you're going through life feeling like, oh gosh, there might be something out of alignment, there might be something I'm missing, I gotta pay really close attention. There's what's the word? When you're really, constantly on edge looking around, there's a word that I'm trying to think of, but it's not
hyper vigilant.
Vigilant, yes. I like it starts with a V. And that is usually one of the things that people need to transform when they come to this work, is like this hypervigilance of making sure I don't make a mistake. And so what I'm committed to, I'm not perfect at it, but what I'm committed to is being 100% all in on what I see, know, believe in any moment, trusting the universe will let me know if I need to learn and integrate something else. And it's nuanced, right? It's slightly different than I'm gonna watch for the signs from the universe, because that can be another way we manifest victimhood in our life.
It's a low level energy.
Yeah, like until the universe gives me permission to believe what I believe, I'm going to wait, or I'm going to kind of couch it just in case I'm wrong. And I think, with my first coming out, it's like I went through that and lived. and it was pretty, I was pretty off, I was teaching people about truth and I was missing this whole area. I didn't die. I didn't lose business. I didn't, nothing bad happened. And it actually emboldened me as a coach because I realized that however together we look or conscious we are, if we have a blind spot, it's a blind spot. And so I don't know if you've ever had these conversations, but I remembered having conversations with clients where I would say, what do you think about this? Right? Like something that I felt I could see. They would say, no. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And prior to coming out, I would believe them, or at least I might not totally believe them, but I wasn't going to say, well, that's bullshit.
Right. You wouldn't push on it.
Right. But someone would, if someone had asked me if I was gay, I would have said, yeah, I thought about that. I'm not.
Right. Move on.
So I knew that like, there's so much more going on here in our relationship to truth.
Yeah. I've seen you live into that as I've watched you coach other people and how you'll push on something harder than I would. Like, I'm like, oh no, that's going to really disrupt them. But then it's like, oh, wow, you really land into this other realm of deeper truth with them. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. And if we can do that without judgment about it, both as a client and as a coach, right? Because as a client, still things will be hidden from my view that I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the human experience. It's not shameful or wrong. It's like fun and exciting.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, what else is there to learn about me?
Mm-hmm. So then
I see your wheels churning. What's coming up for
well,
you?
I want to hear then how this most recent coming out story happened. Like, I remember you saying something about you had a retreat where you had Liz Gilbert come and you had a download at that retreat.
Yeah. Well, there's a few ways to talk about it. So I think the recent coming out, if we have to give it a label, is a spiritual coming out, like a different way of doing business. And even though, I've been in business 10 years now, and I would have called myself an intuitive business owner from the beginning, not an intuitive, like how I think about being able to communicate with source now, but I felt like I followed my gut. I followed my intuition. I was really committed to alignment. In other words, if someone said, this is the popular thing to do, I didn't do it if it didn't feel right. So I've always kind of had that piece. Yet there's a way in which I'm smart, so my brain can come up with good strategies, right? So it was like, I would get the intuition about something and then my brain would just take over and decide, oh, this is what that means. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And I would have this whole plan, not realizing that I could continue to consult source every step of the way. So this was a few years ago. I was hosting an event and was like, I knew I wanted to do events differently. I had done the traditional events the way I had been taught for a couple of years, and I knew I wanted something different. So I was in this place of experimenting with what that looked like. And I got this intuition to check out what Liz Gilbert was up to. It was just like a flash. And so I went to her website, and on her website, she was, and in case anybody doesn't know who Liz Gilbert is, she wrote Eat, Pray, Love, which became a motion picture. And she's written several books, and she's absolutely fabulous.
She's actually one of my people of like, I would love to be in her sphere. Yeah, just like connect with her somehow.
Yeah, she's awesome. So I went to her website, and on her website, it said she was doing a guest teaching at a retreat in Seattle the week after my event, which was happening in Seattle. So I was like, oh my God, it's like meant to be. So I reached out and I negotiated with her agent and got her to come do a workshop at my event. So I was super excited, and I just, I got the sign to check her out. And then I saw that, and immediately my brain just went into action. I'm like, okay, well, obviously she has to come to this event. Obviously it's going to be like this. Everybody's going to want to come because Liz Gilbert's coming. It's going to be like the best thing ever. But I didn't check in and say, hey, Spirit, do you want me to hire her? Like, should she come to the event? Is there some other reason? Da, da, da. I didn't check in. So I can't tell you what the answer would have been. But she came and she was awesome. It was a great day. But what was tricky is the event didn't just automatically sell out just because Liz Gilbert was there. And I want everybody to get that, because I think there's this thought somehow, I'm sure everybody has some place where they think, like, for other people, it's easier, right? Like, well, if I were just this person, then my event would sell out really easily and I wouldn't have to do the work.
If I was a little more famous or a little bit more.
Exactly. If I were just Liz Gilbert, my event would just sell out. And the truth is, all of the principles of marketing and communication and connection and sales, they all still apply. Like, just having someone famous doesn't change that. So, and that's all to say that this event was a real pain in the ass to fill. And I ended up having about 55 people at the event, and which was not enough to break even on the whole event. And it was like 3 weeks out, and I knew, like, I had filled events before. I'd had, 100 people at my events typically. I knew what it took to fill an event, and I knew I could do it. It was like, I could pick up the phone and call, I can hustle, I can do all these things. But is that what my soul really wants me to do? So I ended up just going with the 50 whatever people that came. And it was an amazing event. It went really, really well, but it wasn't a great event financially. And when I was in that moment of filling this thing, and at that time, everything I was marketing was about retreats. And this event was not. It was just totally different. It was called Badass Leaders Align. And it was just like a totally different thing. But I hadn't been doing anything to say I'm a coach about badass leadership. I hadn't been marketing that. It was just kind of out of the blue. So I sat with myself and I was like, God, if it weren't for this event, everything in my life would be so easy right now. Because my retreat business, I had a funnel set up. My retreats were filling, like, with Facebook ads automatically. I didn't even have to have sales calls. My retreats were working, had great clients coming through. But my ego decided, we got to do this event. And then we have to make it extra hard by, like, adding the expense, because I hired Liz. So I added the expense of hiring Liz and thinking it would make it easier, but I think it made it harder. And so long story short, in that moment where I said, if it weren't for this thing, my life would be so easy right now, I got really, really committed to living sourced and to really tuning in and checking and confirming fit and really trusting where I was guided, rather than allowing my mind and my ego to come in and say, well, you should have a big event. If you don't, you're not successful enough. And obviously this means you should hire Liz Gilbert. By the way, in the time between when I hired her and when we had our event was when she came out as being with a woman. And so it was really cool to have that story on our stage and everything. But, I can't ever go back and know how it would have gone the other way. But maybe I was just supposed to be following her story, but my mind was like, oh, obviously you have to hire her. So over the next few years, I really dedicated myself to clearing my connection to source, to being able to really hear clearly, to not let my mind come in and take over and decide what I should do, rather than allowing my inner knowing really to guide. I just amped up all of my practices around that and have realized how much less I need to work to live sourced, how little we really need to do, like physically actively do, to be on target. Like, so much of our doing is just habit because our world is busy. But a lot of it is because our ego thinks we should somehow be someone different than we are.
Yeah, someone told me earlier today, the more you slow down, the greater success you will have because the more efficient you'll become because you're
Yeah,
listening into that
exactly.
source. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and it's tough in our world because, you know, I've had people who have come on retreat and felt guilty for just being on retreat, like that they're
Mhm.
not, you know, they're on the breaks, like trying to get things done. And I remember being that person at some
Mhm.
point in my.
Well, even for myself, when I came to your retreat, I was like taking a holiday from being a mom, and that was a huge gift. But also, I had that guilt of like, I should be home, I should be helping. Oh, my wife's got all these things to juggle, and like,
Right.
no, like this is a time for me to be refreshed, and then I can come back in a whole different way.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to spend a lot more time doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Which could be going on retreat or sitting silently with yourself or walking in nature or breathing deeply. You know, there's so many ways, but it can't be another thing that we just add to our to-do list. Like, I should do this.
I
Hurry up,
have
let
to.
me check it off so I can get
Mm-hmm.
to the next thing.
Yeah. So, was there a moment that you decided, like, I'm going to drop my old brand, Retreat and Grow Rich, and really enter into this new brand of Sourced?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. I had, I would like to say, I wish it were more elegant, because when I knew, so my old brand was actually Aligned Entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And under the brand of Aligned Entrepreneurs, I developed the program Retreat and Grow Rich, and I wrote the book. And really working with retreat leaders was an amazing step in my journey to loving working with people who are already transformational leaders. So, because before that, I worked with any business owner. There's a common language among anyone who gets that nudge to host retreats. They've been through a whole series of different transformations. So I love being able to work with those people. But I was under Aligned Entrepreneurs for many years. And before that, it was Align and Profit. And this idea of alignment, you know, it was new when I started talking about it. And it really suited me. But then the you know, kind of like what we're talking about, the more I worked with people on their alignment, the more I realized we have this idea that I'm going to get in alignment and then I'm going to stay there. And it's like there's some right way for me to be. And once I get there, then I'm good. And honestly, in the beginning, I thought that. I'm like, let me just fix myself, get all my shit together, and then I'll be good. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was a point where the idea of alignment no longer resonated for me. But I didn't know where I was going next, actually. So I killed it before I had the new thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just decided, you know what, I'm no longer Aligned Entrepreneurs. I kept marketing Retreat and Grow Rich, the programs and all of that, and waited for the new thing to come through. So again, on retreat, I did a private retreat, a branding retreat with one of my clients, actually, who's amazing and magical. And it was on that retreat that the name Sourced came through and the idea around it came through. And it really came through. I was journaling about Retreat and Grow Rich, and Retreat and Grow Rich is a mission. It still exists, by the way, everyone, retreatandgrowrich.com. It's still a program and a book and all of that. But it was really a mission to get more money in the hands of rich leaders, which is right-brained, intuitive, connected, and heart-centered. And I knew that was my mission. So I just was journaling on that. I was on this retreat. I had done a lot of clearing work. And I was just journaling on what does it really mean to be rich, right-brained, intuitive, connected, and heart-centered. And I'm just writing. And that's when the word Sourced came through. And I really got that as the next brand to live into. And I sat with it. I hosted a couple retreats called Sourced last year. And I sat with what does this mean and where is this going for almost a year. And then I finally, okay, it's ready to birth. It's ready to birth. And really the pandemic lit my fire to get the website up. It was in development for a while and there was really no need to get it up. And then the pandemic hit. People aren't retreating in the same way. And I was like, this sourced message is really important right now. Like, how do you go through a pandemic without trusting your own connection to source? I have no idea. So, yeah. In terms of, because this is Coming Out Chronicles, in terms of coming out spiritual, I don't think there was a grand coming out, like there was with my sexuality. It wasn't like one day, I'm going to start being spiritual. It happened in stages. Like I would start using the word spirit. This was many years ago. When I first used the word spirit, I was like, oh my God, I might die. Like, can I say that?
Because what were you afraid people would think or do?
I don't know. I mean, there's the fear, I think the common fear that so many of us hold of being woo-woo, being dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
Because my degree is in engineering. Mm-hmm. In my corporate life, like intuition was never a good reason to do something. You had to have data and graphs and charts and studies and all of that, even though all the data can be skewed to say whatever you want. Intuition wasn't valid. And I actually got feedback at my work to tone down my soft skills, right? Like those will only get you so far here. Mm-hmm. So I had all these this baggage running in my mind about what it is to be intuitive, and that is not valid. Being good at math and science is valid. Having your logic all make sense is valid. I think I learned that in my household growing up. I remember arguing to no end with my mom and, trying to get the most logical argument. And so, yeah, we learn. And in this masculine world, logic, reigns. Right. But we keep, I'm sure no one listening to this thinks it's new news that we're moving toward more feminine leadership. Yeah. And intuition really is the way to go. It's going to be in the future. But it's scary to be, talking about it when no one, is talking about it. Now it's more open and out there. Yeah. But even so, I wore this, I have this outfit on today, which I remember I bought this in Mexico, and I stared at it for like 3 days, and I was like, I don't know why I need that outfit.
Describe it to us for people that can't see it.
So I have this, it's white with purple print, and it has like a big elephant on the back, the spiritual elephant. And there's matching pants.
Wow. It's like a flowy vest kind of.
Yeah. But I stared at it and I thought, where would I ever wear that? Like, what are people going to say if I wear that? So it's like little places, the little coming outs. Yeah. Over and over and over again of like, what is my natural expression? And can I give myself permission to play with it? And one of the reasons I worked with the client I did on my branding is because her brand is called evolvative.com. We developed that together, but I was just in love with it. Because, in our industry too, we hold up this idea that you need a brand and then you need to be consistent all the time with that brand, right? Mm-hmm. Only as humans, we evolve and grow. And so we're never going to be the same person that developed the brand. Right. As soon as you publish it, you're like past it, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we have to give ourselves permission to show up in different ways, even if it doesn't fit who we were yesterday or who we thought we should be. Mm-hmm. And we're not taught that, right? We're taught the very linear, like you get a brand and then you have your standards and then you always show up as these standards. So all that is to say, I stared at the outfit and I was like, where the hell am I going to wear that? Because it doesn't really fit my brand. But as you can see, I bought it. So
yeah, and you're rocking it today.
And I've worn it in public too.
Because you've evolved into more of your feminine side. Is that what you would say since that time in Mexico when you first saw that outfit?
Oh, well, that could be a whole other
the masculine feminine. We'll get you to come on and talk about that.
I would say there's an aspect of the feminine for sure, that the intuitive, the spiritual, being spiritual can go either way, but the intuitive is definitely more of the feminine. For me, I think just where I am in this moment in time when we're speaking is embracing both sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, it might be, I might be feeling more feminine one day and more masculine another day, or one day I might feel like mixing it up.
Mm-hmm.
And giving myself permission, because I'm an engineer, I am a lesbian, I'm like a business owner, I am kind of more, I take on more of the masculine roles in our household. So there's a lot of me that's masculine
Mm-hmm.
that I really enjoy. So giving myself permission to be both and to use both,
Mm-hmm.
and to really honor both, this is just coming through. There's so much, I speak about the feminine and bringing more intuition and bringing more feminine leadership. That doesn't mean demonizing the masculine,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you have those masculine gifts, it's just putting them in the right order.
Yeah.
Using the masculine, using your mind to create a brilliant, marketing campaign is great, as long as you're checking, you're asking questions of the intuition and letting that guide.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really the goal for all of us, is to be able to hold those both in balance.
Totally.
And imagine what masculinity and patriarchy, all that would look like if they could hold it in balance as well. Like, so much of our whole world would change if all of us were in balance with that.
Exactly. And I've had the experience where people are advocating for feminine leadership and demonizing the masculine in a way,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to bringing them together.
Yeah. And that's not the way forward.
And I think people like us in same-sex relationships can really help model that.
I was just going to say that.
Automatically, we're out of the stereotype, right?
Yeah.
So then it's like, well, what does it look like?
Mm-hmm.
How do I want to express?
It's so fun to have that free flowing, like, what are you best at? Okay, you take these on. What are you best at? You take this on.
Right.
Yeah. I have a little bit of a personal question, if you don't mind.
I'll let you know if I mind.
I know that you and Kimmy both work together a lot. Like, you both are entrepreneurs, but your
Mhm.
business coincides a lot and things. And how do you balance that? Like, living together, working together, not having codependence, like having a really healthy relationship. What would you say is some of the tools for that, for your success?
It all comes back to being sourced, honestly, which is a great thing when the thing you're talking about is actually the thing you believe and live in all the areas. So, during pandemic, obviously, when we moved during pandemic, so we're putting our household together, unpacking 24/7 together, not going other places. So it's a lot of togetherness. It's really, really important to stop and tune in. And so we have that habit and that language within our relationship to say, are you saying that just because you think it's what I want to hear, or did you check in? Right? Like, what does your soul say about that?
Yeah.
What are you feeling called to today? Especially under quarantine, it's like, well, just because you're together doesn't mean you have to be together, right? So it's like, oh, I'm feeling really pulled to have some time to myself right now, and being okay setting those boundaries. I know at first, because Kimmy does primarily event photography, right? So her business kind of stopped. She does always referral based, a ton of event photography. She does some headshots and things, but usually people travel to her. So her business just kind of stopped. So I was working, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I should hurry up and, go, I don't know, do something with her, because she's just hanging out, right? Like, I should hurry up and do this. And once I remembered, wait, check in. Okay. What do you need today? Do you need, do we need to go on an adventure? Do we need to have alone time? And really pause and check in and have that conversation.
Yeah, that's great.
It's not normal conversation.
No.
We think it's weird.
Yeah. But
Um,
really
like
spacious.
a coming out example of that similar thing is I will now, when I'm, now it's on Zoom, but like leading a retreat, if I'm not sure, like we're at a pause, I'll just stop and go and ask my soul, okay, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Like which of the three, things we could do next is it? And I'll just stop and do that. And I remember a client saying, well, what do you do if you're not like, here? Like, do you still do that? And I do now. But that would have been something that would have been too embarrassing before, where I would have been like, oh, I have to go home and write that on my list to meditate about. Right. And now I can pause and check in. So
in front of a room of 10 people or something, just check in.
And it was, and when I did it, because I started, really practicing doing that in my life. And when I did it the first time in front of the room, or the first time someone called me out on it, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And I was like, oh, this is amazing, because if we all took sovereignty over our decision-making publicly, like we didn't feel like it was embarrassing to not have an answer right now, it would totally shift. So my doing that gave them permission to do whatever they need to support themselves in being clear.
Yeah.
And 30% of people don't know in the moment. I happen to be one of the 70% that have a gut response. I know in the moment, but 30% of people don't know. They like literally need to sleep on it, or they need to say, I think I'm a yes, let me get back to you. We make that wrong. Like, oh, you're indecisive, you're weak, you're whatever.
Yeah. This is human design talk you're bringing up, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And the thing I'm learning too as a generator is like, don't ask 3 questions, ask 1 question. Like, is it break time? Yes or no?
Yeah.
And then, is it food time? Yes or no?
Exactly.
And go through it like that. Yeah, that's
exactly.
So helpful.
Exactly. And it can be super quick.
So do you have anything else that's brewing as a next stage coming out story that you feel like you would share with us?
The only thing that's popping up, I was thinking about this morning because we have a quiz, and I wanted to share with your listeners about this quiz that we are just launching. So it's at sourcedexperience.com/quiz. I hope that's okay if I share that.
Yeah, perfect. I'll put it in the show notes too.
And, it is about your sourced magic and what type of magician are you in the way you work with your clients. And so there's 6 different archetypes, and it's feeling just really alive and really exciting. I'm not sure exactly where it will lead, but I know, I'll be developing programs to help you nurture and nourish your magic. And to really have that be a practice, because it's not something that, just because you get the insight, right? We get the transformation and we get the new possibility, or I call it the sourced energy. Then we have to live it. We have to, nurture that in our life. So that's what I'm most excited about. And the only reason I would call it a coming out is, they're invented, they're downloaded. So, I'm making a choice that this download is real and that these are going to be really, really helpful for people. Right. And what I'll share with anyone as advice is I tested it now with a group of clients on retreat. So I had them each select from their intuition, which one they resonate with. I gave them the quiz. We compared it. We've talked about it. So I know there's value, and I know there's some sense of accuracy to it. But when you're a thought leader, it's all invented. So it's trusting that this is coming through for a reason. But test it out on live clients, on retreat, do sample sessions, whatever it is you need to feel comfortable and confident with what's coming through.
You are a bold woman, and I am so grateful for your voice in the world and the ways that you show up and inspire so many of us to really live from our heart and share our gifts with the world.
Thank you, Nancy. I remember when you first said that you got this download to do this work of this podcast, and that was a coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm honored to be here and be featured, and just really, really excited about what you're creating.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll hear from you again someday.
Oh, I'd love that.
Okay, have a great one.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Coming Out Chronicles. If you enjoyed it, give it a like. And if you think it would be helpful for someone else, please share it with them. If you'd like to connect with me, reach out on social. I'd love to support you on the next chapter of your coming out story. Until next time, this is Nancy Shadlock from Centered Life Coaching.